Well, let me start off by making a couple of comments. First of all, when I first came into office and we started making some of the changes that we needed to make in this office and in City Hall, one of the things that we knew is that we were inheriting a badly understaffed police department. We have authorized strength in our police department. In other words, we authorize a certain number of officers, but we are a city that is at least 300, certainly more than 300, under our authorized strength. And so one of the things that I anticipated we'd have to deal with is how do we address that so that we assure that Austinites are safe and that Austinites feel safe. And one of the things that we decided to do was to try an innovative effort working with the Department of Public Safety. A couple of things about that. One is we knew that we always knew that we probably would be in a situation where we were needing to balance unique Austin policing methods with the fact that we needed more police officers that weren't in the Austin Police Department. We also knew that one of the things that we were going to do is we were going to, as this went along, that we would, and I made that promise at the time, as we went along, we probably would need to calibrate. There would be things, come on in. There would be instances and things that we would see as we went along that we would want to change and calibrate. And we made the promise at the very beginning that at some point in time, we might call a suspension to this effort. Now, we learned some things. We actually, I'm not going to use that word. It's not that we learned some things, we confirmed some things. One of the things is that this program had successes. For example, we saw violent crime go down. We saw the number of traffic fatalities go down, the number of traffic collisions go down. We also saw that response times went down, the kinds of things you're looking for in a program to make sure Austinites are safe and that they feel safe. What I was going to say is that when that happened, it demonstrated to us one of the reasons that we wanted to do this, and that is if we have more police officers that are on the job doing the policing job, we see a difference. Now, we've reached a point, like we promised that we might, and after we've done a lot of calibration, we've listened to the public, and we decided that it was an appropriate time to suspend the partnership that we had with the Texas Department of Public Safety. Where that puts us is that we are back to looking at other ways we might address this acute problem of not having enough police. And I want to be clear about something. This was not the only thing that this mayor and this council was doing that was creative to deal with policing. It sometimes is lost that what this council did in the absence of a police contract is this council had an ordinance to guarantee police salaries. It passed an ordinance to guarantee retirement benefits. It passed an ordinance that said we want to give every member of the APD, every officer in APD, a pay increase, and they all received a 4% pay increase. We created an additional step in the retirement program so that we could retain officers more. We also created a program that allowed for the payment of bonuses for people we recruit, so that a cadet, you come into our class, that cadet gets a bonus at that point in time. There are steps along the way where there's a second bonus, a third bonus, and if you get through your probationary period, there is a fourth bonus. Again, both attract and retain as part of the creative methods. And we will continue to do those kinds of things. Key among those issues to achieve the goals that we want to achieve in terms of policing and public safety is the best way, if the top way, I would say, there may be a number of ways, but the top way is we need to get to a contract, a long-term contract with the police union. It's beyond time for the president of the police union to not stand on the sideline and throw stones and throw rocks, but instead come back to the table. The best way for the police union leadership to demonstrate respect for the people that he says he wants to represent and wants to serve is to come back to the table so that we can negotiate a contract, and that, in my view, will be the number one way we can address our policing shortage. So I talked a little longer than I intended, but I want to kind of lay out a context, and I'll be happy to answer a few questions. I see you're chomping at the bit. Go.
You laid out yesterday in the press release about recent incidents have inspired this decision. Can you lay out what were the incidents that led to that?
Well, look, we need to create a context. Throughout the course of this, we've seen instances where we needed to calibrate, and as I said at the very beginning of my comments, we knew we were going to need to be balancing unique Austin policing with the need to have additional police resources that weren't part of APD. That has created a balance, and all along we've listened to the public, we've heard, and we've calibrated. In the last few days, of course, there have been a couple of incidents that you're aware of, and we decided that in the context of those incidents, this was the appropriate time to make the right decision to suspend that partnership. And I'm not going to get into all the details of this and that sort of thing. I feel very comfortable that it's the right decision at the right time. And yes, as we pointed out yesterday, there were a couple of specific incidents that spurred that.
What other alternatives with APD having 333 officer positions open? What other alternatives are you now exploring?
Well, we're going to continue to do things like what I just mentioned, where we assure that we have salaries and bonuses and those sorts of things to attract and retain police officers. We also, as I've also been very clear about, the best way is for us to get to a police contract. And in my view, that requires that Mr. Villarreal, as leader of the police union, come back to the table so that we can have negotiations in that regard. But I want to be clear about something else. This is not a uniquely Austin problem. Now, while I inherited a severely understaffed police department, across the country, police forces, big cities and small cities, are having difficulty meeting their needs in terms of the number of police officers. In fact, the Department of Public Safety is below its authorized strength as well. So I think I'm pretty clear that we're going to, the mayor and the council and management are going to continue to do what we've already demonstrated, which is respect for our police officers by pay and benefits and bonuses. But at the same time, we're ready to start the process of getting to a long-term contract, which is key. Yes, ma'am.
There's been multiple incidents, even when this started a few months ago, and now recently you're saying, was it the 10-year-old story that we did was the one that broke the camel's back?
There are a variety. I'm not going to go into all the details of everything, but what I'm going to say is there have been incidents where we promised at the beginning of this that we would pay attention, and there may come a time when we needed to suspend this program, this partnership, and we decided that this was the right time.
What would you say to people, real fast, just to follow up, what would you say to people that are saying that the decision you did was just too hasty and that you based your report on a quote-unquote false report that had no backing to it? What would you say to those people?
Well, first of all, what would you say to them if they're saying your reports have no backing to it?
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, but
I assume you saw the video. You saw
sure,
what was on it.
sure. I'm not going to get into a he said, she said, is this right, is that wrong, that sort of thing. As I've indicated, there were reasons that we have decided that it's now a good time to move on from that partnership. It is not of any great benefit for me to critique your report or to critique a videotape. Instead, what we're trying to do is critique whether this is the time we ought to suspend that program. Let me say something about that probably won't end up on any of your stories, but it ought to. And that is this. Good government, the good making of public policy, is a recognition that when you have an issue, and in this case, an issue of some acuity in terms of the number of police officers, that you need to address. Good government is when you're willing to attempt things that may be innovative, that haven't been done, that are subject to criticism, and you work to calibrate them, you work to make them better, and you're willing at the appropriate time to say, I'm going to try something else. That is a sign of good government, a sign of good leadership, not a sign that things are being done. I promise you, things were not done in haste. Not that there's done in haste. It's a sign that people are thinking through and trying to provide the good government and the good policy making that our constituents deserve. Yes, sir.
Your office told me yesterday that it was
Can somebody
the
get me
incident
a water?
with the 10-year-old that led to you to pull the plug.
That's one of the things.
Yeah, they're the one that told me that it's that specific incident.
Well,
So did you
again,
call DPS about before you ended this to let them know about it?
First of all, the way you present that question, I have told you, and it's very clear in response, that that was one of the incidents that plays a role in our decision. We made the decision, and DPS was appropriately contacted.
What did they say? Because they've now said that they're going to continue patrolling. So.
Well, look, DPS was patrolling before there was a partnership. DPS has statewide jurisdiction. What the partnership was an effort for us to address, for them to prioritize certain things, including providing certain types of policing in Austin, and where APD was in charge to make sure we were getting the sort of partnership coverage that we wanted with them. This is their jurisdiction. They will continue, I'm sure, to provide service the way they were before, maybe differently based upon things that they have learned during the course of this, but there will not be a partnership the way we had that before.
Last question. Do
You
you plan to
mentioned-
reinstate
You
DPS,
said
the partnership? Do you?
Let me,
Let him ask.
okay, and then I'll go to you.
You said in your statement that the partnership is being suspended because it's not in sync with Austin's values.
I said that's one of the issues.
Can you speak to why this partnership wasn't in sync with Austin's values?
Well, one of the things that we needed to address early on, of course, was how we deployed. And as you know, there were some troubling numbers on how that resulted in the number of the demographics of the people that were being stopped and cited. In the first report was with regard to misdemeanors. The way that policing was being done is a routine way of policing for DPS and for others. The citations on some instances of what the citation was for the criminal activity or the activity that was being cited, sometimes is one of the things that might be cited in other places and by DPS, but not cited in Austin. So those are the kinds of things that we were looking at as you go along. Again, I want to be clear though, this was not this was the kind of partnership where APD was working directly with them, and we didn't learn from it, we knew, and it confirmed what we knew, which was the number of additional police that are out there makes a difference. And so that's why I say we want to go back We want to continue to do those things, and we want to get back to negotiations. I'll do this last question.
You mentioned that response times were down when DPS was involved, and you've mentioned that there's no police contract. So any further explanation on why, knowing that we're not in a police contract, this was the right time to pull the partnership when now Austinites might worry that the response time is going to go back up?
Well, this was the right time, and as I've pointed out, there were a number of instances where we felt like this would be the right time to do it, and there were some incidents in recent days that we all know about and we've pointed to. We're going to continue, and I want to be clear about something I said earlier. It is not a sign of failure to be willing to say, now's the time to try something different. It is in fact a sign that you're being thoughtful, you're looking for ways to meet the needs you need to make, and you're looking at ways to address consequences, sometimes unintended consequences, of what you've already attempted. And that's what this is about. Thank you all very much. Appreciate y'all.